Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for coming, all of you. This is our first wellness webinar, and you are going to lose me from the screen very fast, but I just want to introduce myself and tell you a little bit about what this afternoon is going to bring you. Lots of fun, I know that, and good information as well. Now, I'm Sarah Yates, and I'm the coordinator of our stationary bike race. It's the major fundraiser for the Cerebral Palsy Association of Manitoba, and this seminar is sponsored by us and by Red River Co-op. So thanks to Red River, to CPAM, and very much to the Wellness Institute, who has given us the technical expertise and the two experts you're going to meet this afternoon. Now, I couldn't have done it first without Amy Yonder, who coordinates programs at the Wellness, and our wizard behind the scenes, Darren. Thank you both. It's enormously wonderful of you. Okay, my daughter Gemma and her friend Kristen also delivered bags of groceries to those of you who are lucky enough to be among our first presenters, our first attendees. And you should also have some clay, which Kamara is going to talk to you about very soon. Okay, the program. Kamara Tayo-Jones is going to meet you first. She'll come on soon shortly, and she's going to tell you all about tips to shake off the blues. We all know what blues are like, especially in these COVID times. And she, a social worker with a degree in psychology, she'll show us how to make our lives a happier place creatively. Good fun. Open the air-baked clay for her session. She'll tell you more about it. At 2, you'll have a break. If you're like me, need tea or need a TP, either one, we go from there. And at 2:15, as I would say, or 2:15, you're going to learn from dietitian Laura Creek Newman, a hands-on demonstration where you will be able to utilize all the ingredients we delivered to you yesterday in your bags to make a healthy, delicious meal. Now, a few notes about the ingredients. I think I will leave that to Laura to make. And if afterwards you want to talk to me about how you either enjoyed our session or want to boot me in the bottom for making a mistake, please email me. The details will come right afterwards. Okay, folks, my address will appear at the end of the presentation. Thank you again, Kamara. Thank you, Laura, Amy, and Darren. Bye for now. Enjoy.
Hi everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about how to beat the blues, how to manage stress. And so I welcome you all. About that air drying clay does take about 24 hours to dry. So if yours is open, please close it. And we can talk more about it later on. Absolutely. And so as we get started, we talk about what is stress. And it's an emotional response, a physical response to a situation. And it's normal. It's a normal part of life. It's expected. But we also have good stress and bad stress. Good stress is moving, going on vacation, having a baby. Bad stress is an argument, too much work and not enough resources, or even fear. And we all have different ways to deal with stress. What happens when we have chronic stress? And that means stress that's happening every day for a long period of time. It doesn't happen for a short period of time. It goes on and goes on. It has a negative effect on our body, and we can feel exhausted. We might find that we're getting more infections, that maybe we have high blood pressure, heartburn, or some mood problems, depression, anxiety, low self-esteem. Lots of times people will talk about having difficulty managing time. Weight gain and weight loss absolutely are affected by stress as well. Some unhelpful coping strategies, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but these are the things that we tend to do sometimes that aren't very helpful to us. And so if you find yourself anywhere on this list, there are things that you can do to help. If you're smoking and smoking more than usual, you can certainly talk to your doctor about quitting smoking. It's called smoking cessation, and different ways that they can help you medically support quitting smoking. Similarly, for alcohol use, there are medications that can help you with the addiction part of that. In this session today, we're going to look at all the other things that you can do that's within your control when you don't need to have help from a doctor. So when we talk about coping, we also talk about being resilient. And coping is important because it helps you rebuild your quality of life. And so often we'll hear people say, you know, it's changed, things are different. I don't feel like my usual self because I'm not dealing with stress well, or I'm just feeling really sad or really tired. And so we'll look at ways that you can cope to be able to rebuild that quality of life so you're feeling more in control. What is resilience? It's the ability to recover quickly and come back stronger. It's how we adapt and function well when life gets challenging. It's a series of skills that we can learn through practice and consistent use. Think about the following. Consider improving any of these that you don't feel too confident about, and you can do this on your own or with support. Many times we'll feel like we've lost our sense of purpose. For people who don't have something to occupy their time during the day, you know, what do you do with your time? Who do you help? What's it worth to you? And we'll question that. Think about understanding your emotions, and you know, can you have that conversation with yourself and ask yourself, how do I feel today, and what does that mean? How can you regain control of your life? How can you take charge of what's happening around you? And we'll talk more about this. Now that we know what resilience is, let's take a closer look at how we can build on each of these skills. So today we're going to talk about self-awareness, changing the way that you think, fostering positive emotions, and protecting positive emotions, connecting with your supports, and taking care of yourself. When your emotions are too strong to manage on your own, you may need to seek help from your family doctor or mental health professional. So if you find that you're feeling sad, tired, too much, or extremely anxious, and it's just more than you can handle, definitely get in contact with your family doctor and have a conversation about that. There are medications that may be able to help you. It's important to understand that sometimes when your mood feels like it's not usual, it could very well be that you're having a chemical imbalance. Maybe the stress hormone is too high and the feel-good hormones are too low, and medication can certainly help to balance that for a short period of time or long-term if that's what you need. So in looking at self-awareness, we'll talk about giving attention to your emotional health. Start with identifying how you feel and validate these feelings. During difficult times, absolutely, it's common to feel afraid, helpless, overwhelmed, and we're seeing that right now. And it's okay to say that. Oftentimes, people will not want to say how they're truly feeling because it's bad, it's negative, but sometimes it's really good to have that conversation with others, or to be able to sit down and write, journal about it, or just think about it. Recognize the feelings and spend time thinking about what it means to you. Use your resources and skills to strengthen your belief in your abilities, and create some focus on the beginnings of a plan to manage what comes next for you. Think about what you do really well, right? What are your character qualities? You know, are you a people person? Are you someone who likes to work in the background and not be in front of others, but you get the job done really well? Are you someone who works well alone or need to be around other people? Are you good with your hands or your feet? What do you do really well? These are your skills, and these are things that you need to hone in on because it's what you have as your super ability. Think about times in the past and how you've handled those situations. They're difficult situations. What did you do to get through that? and take a look at if you can replicate that again. So when you're feeling sad, alone, stressed, oftentimes you're feeling like you're losing control. And that can make you react in impulsive ways. It can make you make decisions that aren't usually what you would say or do. And you feel like you're losing yourself. And that's where we talk about changing your mindset to change your behavior and help you regain control. So the next set of information is a lot of information to go through. And so I will try my best to get through it as quickly as possible. Foster. Oh, there's a question. Wonderful. We'll take a pause then and answer the question. Go ahead. What does it mean to validate your feelings? That's a great question. So let's go back to where that was. Validating your feelings means to identify exactly what your feelings are and what it means around it. So validating your feelings, sometimes you might feel, I don't know, Amy, shoot one out at me one day that you're feeling a little off center. Frustrated with slipping on the ice. And you're feeling frustrated, but there are a whole bunch of other feelings embedded in that. So yes, you may have fallen, you may have bruised your knee, may have scraped your leg, maybe you can bruise your eye a little bit, and you're frustrated, but you're also in pain. You're hurt. There's shame to go with that because you know who saw me and who's laughing at me, and am I laughing at myself? And there are all these other feelings that are connected to this one feeling of being frustrated. Do you know what those feelings are? Take time to understand exactly what that is for yourself, and that means you're validating your feelings. Otherwise, so often we'll just get up and just keep going about our day and do what we have to do and not recognize how we're feeling. And so it could mean that you just stop what you're doing, sit down. I know I've slipped on the ice and I'll just sit right there and everybody's like, are you okay? I was like, just give me a minute, because I'm like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And I have to understand how I'm feeling and what I'm going to do next. And that means that I'm in control. If I were to just bounce right back up and try and hobble away quickly so that nobody sees me, but my leg's hurting me and I feel like I'm going to cry and I'm getting really angry and then I'm feeling out of control and who knows what's going to happen afterwards. So what I'm going to do is just sit right there and say, give me a moment. Let me just get my bearings, you know, and I can recognize I'm hurt physically, I'm hurt emotionally, I'm embarrassed. I feel really guilty that I didn't see that patch of ice. I'm frustrated that it happened again and now I'm injured and now I'm worried about what this injury is going to mean for me and if it's going to heal very quickly or create more problems. There's all that that's happening. That's what validating feelings means. It means getting through to yourself, understanding what it means. Think about when you talk to your friends and they're telling you how they feel and you're asking them questions about it and you're saying, oh my gosh, that must be horrible, and they're going on about it. That's what validating our feelings means, and we can do that for each other in a conversation. How often do we actually do that for ourselves? And that's what I'm asking you to do, to take time to understand how you're feeling and validate it, because when you know how you feel, you're more in control of being able to act on that. Any other questions? No? Okay, we're moving on. So changing the way that you think. How do you do that? Foster positive thoughts that help you feel confident and capable. What does that mean? Well, it's a skill to help you manage difficult times, and it can only get better with consistent practice. So recognize when your thoughts are unhelpful and replace them with more realistic and positive thinking. So instead of saying, this is too much, I can't do it, try, I've done similar things before, and even though it feels hard, I have done many hard things in my life. Sometimes we can be discouraged by our thoughts, our past failures, fear of future failure, right? So find out what motivates you and remember it for when you need it most. Think about motivation as the reasons you want to do something. These reasons are usually driven by a strong desire to try something new, improve yourself, or add something to your life. And when you can buy into the reasons why you want to do this, you're more likely to follow through on it and become consistent. And you can try it once and it works well, but if you don't keep trying it, it's not going to be a useful tool for you. So keep working on it. And if you screw up and one day you kind of miss it and you don't really change that negative thinking, that's okay. That's part of the learning. And you can get right back up and do it again. If you said something unkind or short-tempered to someone, you can take ownership of that and recognize that you don't like how that makes you feel and how it makes other people feel, and then decide what you're going to do about it. And that's a start. So one step at a time. So we spent all this time fostering positive emotions, right? It's like spending time outside in the joy of winter activities. That's positive emotions. It's going to make you feel good. So we can protect our emotions and we can foster positive emotions. So when we foster positive emotions, we're talking about experiences to help you with positive thoughts. And you can go online to social media and you can get onto those sites that are positive vibes and positive thoughts and daily remembrances and all of that, that will give you a daily note that is something positive for you. For some people, they'll roll their eyes at that and say, that's not realistic. And for other people, it's what they need to stay focused, right? So like spending time outside in the joy of winter activities, right? We all like that. When you're heading outdoors, some of you might want to catch snowflakes on your tongue. Remember, don't try to catch snowflakes on your tongue until all the birds have flown south for the winter. And that's laughter, comedy that you watch, that you listen to, that you read or experience in person. And it's really important to remember that comedy is really good for us in the moment. When we laugh, absolutely, we get that serotonin and the dopamine and that feel-good feeling. Those stress hormones are going down and those happiness and calm hormones are going up and we're feeling good. You may not remember the joke, but you're going to remember the laugh. Sometimes you'll remember it as a really bad dad joke and you'll laugh about it, but that's it, you're laughing. And so try and find that every day. Start your day with something good to smile about. Gratitude. So remember what you're grateful for and how this has added to your life. So a while ago, Oprah, so 25, 30 years ago, Oprah had, she started something with a gratitude journal. And it was a really good thing to start off with, but it gets really hard to do that every day, especially if every day is a real challenge for you. And so something to think about is you don't have to journal it if that's too much work. Sometimes it just means to think about it. Just give yourself the opportunity to say, what's going really well today? And find that. And if nothing's going really well, you can find something really, really good. I had a client who said to me, I was having a really crappy day. I was stuck in bed. I couldn't get out. My home care person didn't show up. And there I was looking out the window and I saw this squirrel fighting to slide up to get up this pole, and he kept sliding down. And that was enough for her to be grateful, to say that that squirrel experience made her smile and took her away from the troubles of her day, and that she was grateful for. So it doesn't have to be big, it can be something small. Express yourself through art, and that's where this air drying clay comes in. This is just one that you have. You can get this at Dollarama. It comes in a pack of 5 with different colors. You can also order it on Amazon. I got some that had 28 different colors and different tools that you can use and googly eyes that you can put on them. You can use it functionally for like what I have here. I don't know, Amy, are we able to, let me see if I can see this. What I have here is, there we go, is a paintbrush with some clay on it. The clay is dried, right? It's molded to my hand. I can slip this brush in and out, but the last time I really put it in. So I can slip it in and out and change different brushes. And so what I use that for is sometimes when my hands hurt really badly, it cramps up and I can't grasp all the way around. And so I can use this so I don't have to hold all the way around the brush, and I can do whatever I have to do there. You can use this for a spoon, pen, pencil, whatever you need to hold in your hand, or whatever you use, but it helps to be able to control your grip. And so that's a very functional way to use air drying clay. And the way this works is you can manipulate the clay. So here's mine. I've had this for a few months now, and it's quite pliable. I keep it in a sealed container, right? Nice good lid or a zippy bag. And I use it. I'll break off a piece if I need to, or just use the whole thing. And when I'm done with it and I want exactly what I've made, I leave it out in the open. I do not put it back in the sealed container as I'm doing right now. I leave it out in the open, and it usually dries in about 12 hours, but it fully cures in about 24 hours. And then in 24 hours, you have that permanent fixture where it's no longer pliable, it's firm, and it's good and ready to go. So what happens is you can do Christmas ornaments with this. You can make window art. You can do some simple pottery. There's so many different ways that you can use this, and it's a toy. It's listed as a toy, right? That you can get in the school supplies aisle at the Dollarama. But you can also use this as anything that you need. And so what I would say to you is don't worry about it being a toy. That's just a label. Don't worry about using it for specific things that you're told to use it for. You use it for what you need. And if you decide you want more, just go and get some more for yourself. And hopefully you'll find some joy with that. Feeling successful, accomplishing something on your to-do list or finishing a task. When was the last time you did something and you just sat back and went, yeah, I did that and I feel really good. It's over and done with. I had a guy tell me about his junk drawer, and he says, you know, every time he passed it, it was just so messy and so full of things that he did not need. So he took time to clean that out and was just absolutely happy afterwards. He closed the drawer. Nobody knew what was going on, but he just felt so good. And that feeling of success is important for you to hold on to and carry with you. So I'd encourage you to think about ways that you can help yourself feel successful during the day and night. You know, when we feel appreciated, it's our Oscar moment. It's our time to make our little speech and say thank you very much. But it's a recognition of our efforts, and we're receiving gratitude from other people, and it's a job well done. Find ways that you can feel appreciated. Be with the right people who can appreciate what you do for them, and how you can help them. Try helping others as well. It just helps you be connected to something other than yourself, and you find worth in being able to help other people. Think about being connected to other people as well, and we'll talk more about that later on, but it helps you build support through trust, respect, honor, friendship, and shared experiences. It's the simplest thing that we can do when we meet a stranger and we find something common that we can share, and it's something that links us, and we can have conversations about that and then learn about other people that way. So how do we protect these positive emotions? We spent all this time fostering these positive emotions. Now we need to protect them. And why would we need to protect them? Well, when we have all these positive things happening in our lives, then it's very easy to forget them. It's very easy to keep going into the crazy routine that we operate with, or into the sadness and the silence that we have in our lives, and forget that we can rely on these things. And that's where we want to safeguard those emotions by creating boundaries, right? The stress can invade all aspects of our life. And think about the last time you had a bad day or a bad experience with someone, or how it affected you with everyone else that you were with. So schedule time for important tasks. Stick to the schedule. It's okay to say no if you feel overextended or there's no time in your schedule. A long day may mean that you need to rest in the evening, and that also means that you need to decline an invite with friends or family so you can focus on taking care of yourself and recovering from the activities or restoring your energy. Use space as it's intended to be used, and that's really important, right? The bedroom is a calm place for sleeping and other intimate activities. It's not a good place for an arts and craft room or a home office or TV or interactive screen, as these can be distracting to your rest and can clutter your calm space. Think about this. You wouldn't eat dinner in the bathroom, would you? No, and it's the same thing with the bedroom. You know, there are certain things you do there and there are certain things you stay away from. As well, exercise and nutrition. They have many benefits, including helping you manage your energy throughout the day. So it's important to remember all of those things when you're protecting those positive emotions so that you can continue to feel good and foster good thoughts. There's a question. What does safeguard mean? Safeguard means to protect. So when I say safeguard your positive emotions, think about this. In the last slide, you took all this time and energy to create all these positive thoughts and positive emotions, and you need to protect them. Because if you don't protect them, you're going to go back into a really unhelpful routine. And that's where those boundaries are there to safeguard or protect your positive emotions. I hope that answers your question. And this is the other part we were talking about, connecting with your support. So social connection helps us feel visible. It helps us feel cared for. It helps us feel worthy. Think about the last time you spoke with a friend or had a really interesting conversation. Those are the kind of emotions and feelings that we want to continue. So we want you to be able to connect with people in meaningful ways. And that could mean, you know, if you're having a bad day, it's COVID times, if you're self-quarantining in your apartment, and you're behind the closed doors, you can still talk to someone at the window. You can still talk through the door. If your mailman shows up, mail person shows up, and you can say hi, good morning, etc. If you're doing a lot of online shopping and your deliveries are being dropped off at your front door, you can always say hi from a distance, and that's really important instead of just not doing that. And that's how you can connect with your support. So consider what you can do to connect with other people. And this last series is taking care of yourself. Sometimes you just need to take a break. There's a reason why workplaces offer vacation time and why people travel all over the country and the world. Vacations are a great way to hit pause and spend time reconnecting with ourselves and others. And it doesn't have to be a big break either. It can be a few minutes a day or time in the evening or weekends. Taking a break can mean a rest period, a nap, or a change in activities. So think about creating movement, changing your breathing, thinking, and experience, or changing your physical space, right? How do you create movement? We can look at activity. For some people where they're not able to leave their room or their home, it may mean stretching, and we'll talk about that later. It could mean jumping jacks. It could mean rolling over and rolling back. It could just mean sitting down and moving different body parts in control. So, you know, some people will talk about something called progressive relaxation, where you actually focus on moving parts of your body and breathing at the same time, and it helps to release the stress and release that tension. And so definitely you can look that up online. There's lots of information on there to help you with that. So let's talk relaxation. How do you take care of yourself and relax, right? You need a quiet place and minimize distractions. What if you're not in a quiet place, right? You can plug in some headphones, put on some calming music, and close your eyes. That'll take away the distractions right away. If you're a busy person and you're on the computer a lot, that's the time to turn off your notifications on all your systems, on your phone, etc. Turn off your email notifications so that you don't have any distracting blip or noises that come in to take your attention away from what you're doing, right? Remember to breathe and focus on one thought. What that thought is, that's up to you, as long as it's something that's making you feel good. And we'll do a little bit more about that later. This is something that's important. When you do some relaxation, you're going to notice that you feel really good. That's a great indication that you need to do it more often. And so often that we get so busy that we forget to do it, right? Practice it daily. It doesn't have to take very long. It can take just a few minutes, so try that. Let's try this deep breathing. It's an effective coping strategy for stress. It helps you take control. For some people, they'll do deep breathing when they're anxious, right? And you can do deep breathing anytime, anywhere, standing, sitting, lying down, whatever. It just means to slow down, take a few really deep breaths until you can see your chest is moving, your tummy is moving, and you're taking that big, deep air and you're breathing it out. It's never about holding your breath. It's always just about getting that big gulp of air and letting it out. And you take a few. Now, if you're a person who will get lightheaded or maybe tend to pass out, you definitely want to be sitting or lying down when you do this. Otherwise, lean up against the wall if you need to, sit on the floor, wherever you are in a chair, and do some deep breathing. That in itself is going to help oxygenate your body. It's going to calm your heart rate, and it's going to make you feel good and in control. So we talked about stretching before, mentioned it, and now we'll go through it some more. Anytime, anywhere, wherever you are. I'll often do that, especially if I feel some tension in my back, and just pull it and stretch it out until I feel that tension release. Think about how you can do that and what it's doing for you, right? You want to relieve that stiffness, you want to tone your muscles, improve your posture. How many times do you find that you're hunched over like I am right now, and you sit up and you roll your shoulders back and you take a deep breath in and you release it, and now you're good to go again, right? And look at my posture, just changed all of a sudden. Look at that, it worked for me. Hope it's working for you. I wish I could see you all. It's also a great stress reliever, you know? And so just remember that when you're stretching, it's important to breathe. So often we will hold our breath, and that just takes away from what we're doing. So take that deep breath if you can. Take whatever breath that you can do and blow it out and stretch while you're doing it, and you'll feel better. So we're going to try this. Mindfulness and meditation, there's so much to talk about. That's an entire session on its own. So Cole's note version, let's try mindfulness. It's a way to take control of your state of mind. If you're feeling really bothered by something and you really don't have the time to take care of it right away, you can always just make a mental note that you're going to sit down and give some time to think about it later on. And then you do that. And you think about how it makes you feel, what you're concerned about. It makes you concentrate, right? It gives you that mental clarity, and you don't have to spend a lot of time. You know, some people think, well, I have to meditate or be mindful. It's going to be a half hour. It can really be just 2 minutes. And just about, you know, think about that fall, and you sit down and you go, well, you know, I'm feeling pretty crappy right now. What do I do? Right? And you're feeling a little out of control, and you focus on it and think about it, concentrate until things get calm for you, and then you go on with your day. Meditation, we're going to try this right now. It's really hard to do when you can't really see someone, but I'm going to walk you through it, okay? I'm hoping that you're all sitting down or lying down if you are, and you can close your eyes if you want and just listen to my voice. And if you want to keep your eyes open, that's okay. Minimize your distractions if you can. This is visualization. It's a form of meditation. It's where we wake up our senses to help ourselves feel good. And let's try it. So take a deep breath in and release it. I want you to think of your happy place, happy person, happy event. And for the illustration today, we're going to talk about the beach. Okay, it could be lakeside, it could be ocean, it doesn't matter. It's the beach. It's got sand, it's got water, it's got sunshine. All right, so we're going to get there, the beach. Take a deep breath in and picture your happy thought, place, person. For me, it's the beach. And now let's wake up our sense of sight. What do we see? Blue skies, sunshine, water, sand. I see a jetty. That's a little pier sticking out. I see little tiny crabs walking on the jetty. I see trees blowing in the wind. All right, what do you see in your happy place, person, thing? Take a deep breath in. And now we're going to wake up our sense of smell. I can smell the warm air. I can smell the salt. I can smell the ocean. What do you smell? Take a deep breath in. And now we're going to wake up our hearing. I can hear the water. I can hear the wind rustling in the leaves of the trees. I can hear the pelican diving in the water for their food. I can hear the bartender behind me blending up a really nice drink. Yeah, I'm hearing some pretty good things. What are you hearing? Take a deep breath in. When you take another deep breath in, think about what you can taste. I can taste the salt in the air. I can taste the warmth. What are you tasting? Take a deep breath in and reach out and touch. What does your happy place, person, thing, event feel like? I can feel sand between my toes. I can feel the wind on my skin. I can feel the sun on my face. What do you feel? And if your eyes aren't already closed, close your eyes and take a deep breath in. What's that feeling that you have right now? Chances are it's calm or happy or calm and happy, but you're having a good feeling. You're in control. You've just taken control of your state of mind. You've just had some really deep concentration, some mental clarity, and some calmness. And it took us 4 minutes maybe. All right. And this is something that you can do anywhere. In the bathtub, in the shower, at the table, on the bus, in the car, waiting, wherever you need to be. You can just close your eyes and take yourself there. Whatever you do your sense of sight, hearing, your 5 senses, and you always end on that 6th sense. What does that make you feel? How does that make you feel? And take that feeling with you wherever you go for the rest of your day. So our take-home messages today: stress can control your body and you can control stress. Stress, it can affect everything that you do and how your body functions. It contributes to weight gain. It prevents you from living your best life, right? The blues, the sadness, the isolation that we feel right now, that's all stress. So we have stress management strategies that we can use to help. These are lifestyle changes that you can make to take control of your situation. And doing so will hopefully improve your emotional and physical health and can support weight loss. And if you need help, reach out for support from your support team or reach out for mental health support. There's a lot of free support available now because of the pandemic, but you can also reach out to your family doctor for referrals that are appropriate. And you are always welcome to connect with the supports that we have here at The Wellness. All right, so this is a good time for questions.
Okay, so you guys should be able to hear me. This is Amy. I can take some questions. I had one that I wanted to ask. Somebody says here, what about the pandemic? I'm having a lot of problems with that. So I think in general with stress.
Okay, so we're going to need to be more specific with that, because when you say about the pandemic and problems with it, there is a whole spectrum of problems: emotional problems, physical issues about getting out, health issues, technical issues. You know, we have a population of people who don't use the computer or have a smartphone or have a credit card. And so ordering online is a huge challenge for them, and they can't go out and pick up what they need, and they can't order it online. So let's be a little bit more specific, and I'll give that person a chance to make that question more specific so I can be direct. Another question while we're waiting?
Yes. The other question I had was, you talked about creating or changing, pardon me, your physical space. How do you go about doing that?
So if your physical space is cluttered, that clutter is going to lend to clutter in your mind, right? So think about if your physical space isn't very helpful to you. You walk into that room and you see stacks of stuff that shouldn't be there, right away you're already feeling it. You're already feeling that tension. So you can work on decluttering. And decluttering it can be a very daunting task, right? But if you get help to do it, it just means you have to sort. And it doesn't mean you have to spend 8 hours a day doing it. It means that you can designate an hour a day just to do it by yourself, or if you need help, an hour a day with someone to come in and help you to do it. And there's a trick to that, right? If you're going to declutter, you have to be able to separate your items and let them go. And that's tricky, right? Because sometimes we hold on to items. So if this has sentimental value to you and you want to hold on to it, keep it, but you need to have a place for it. And if you don't have a place for it, then you have tough decisions to make. If you want to throw something away or recycle it or give it away, you need to have a pile for each of those. And then the trick is at the end of each hour that you work on decluttering, you have to move those things out. What you keep, you get to keep. What goes in the garbage goes in the garbage. What goes in the recycling bin goes there. And what needs to be going to the thrift store or to a friend or family member needs to go. Otherwise, it just gets moved around to a different spot in your space. So when we talk about changing your environment, changing your space, that's one way. Another way is, if you're in a room for a very long time, it might mean that you need to get up and go to the front door or another window and look outside and get some sunshine on your face, take some fresh air. If you're mobile enough and you can get outside on the ice, go out for a walk, go out for a skate. If you can't go out, go to the front door, the front step, get dressed, step outside and just breathe in that air, in that space. And it's really important because you're changing your environment, you're changing your space, you're changing your thoughts, you're changing your experiences, and you're giving yourself a breath of fresh air and some sunshine. And that's really important to help your mood, right? Because sometimes when we're stuck, we're literally stuck in a spot, and we need to unstick ourselves and be able to try something different. So changing your space could mean decluttering. It could mean going to a different room, spending time somewhere else. For people who stay in their room all day, absolutely. Getting up every hour and moving around is really good for circulation. It's really good for toning your muscles. It's really good for toning your mind, your mental health. Other questions, Amy?
Yeah, I have a few comments that have been made here as we go. The first one was someone commenting their lung capacity is very low, limiting their deep breathing. But what they've learned to do is to focus on blowing out, and then the breath inward becomes more automatic.
Yes, absolutely. So everyone breathes differently. And there's so many different meditation rules out there that say breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds. I can tell you I can't do that. I would be feeling a lot more stressed, and that would not be helping me feel calm. So you breathe according to your rhythm. Everyone has a different rhythm. Some people will do 7 seconds, some people will do 2. What I'm saying to you is breathe the way it makes you feel comfortable. If holding your breath is difficult, do not hold your breath. If you need to focus on blowing out instead of breathing in, absolutely. That's fantastic. Thank you for that. That's a really good thing to show that it's so different.
Yeah, it was great. The other one I have here is all the negative information makes me fear every physical sensation, which may happen. So like a sore throat at night, if you're tired, or a stiffness when you've worked too much. So I think this is kind of relating to COVID, I believe, and then also just feelings in general.
Okay, so absolutely, the negative information on COVID, it's very scary. Think about the last time that you intentionally turned on the TV, radio, listened to something just to make yourself feel scared. We don't usually willingly go into doing that. And so that's where we talk about boundaries on your time and space and energy. If you recognize that the COVID information is too much, then limit how much you listen to. We limit how much you read. In my home, CNN is outlawed. It's not even available. So my family members, if they want to listen to CNN, they've got to listen in their vehicle or go online on their own. it just doesn't happen because it's constantly negative news. If you're finding that COVID news is too much, and it is, it's all day long. You know, at the beginning of the pandemic, we listened because we wanted to learn. But once we realized what was happening, that listening took over, it took control, it slowed us down, shut us down actually. And now they have 12:30 announcements every day. And so at 12:30, you can tune in and then tune out, or you can tune out completely and just go and look at the facts on a specific website, whichever station you listen to, or the government website, and you can choose when you listen to that and when you don't. Because you're right, that negative information has a constant negative effect on you, and that's why it's so important to put those boundaries in place to safeguard your time, your energy. Amy?
I don't have any other questions, but if anyone wants to write one in the either chat bar or the question, I'm checking both. So please ask Kamara any questions you might have. This is the time.
While we're waiting, anybody have any jokes? I went through a lot of different jokes here trying to figure out which one will get you, and really I don't tell jokes very well. I have to practice on telling jokes, but sometimes it just comes really easily. So think about the last time that you heard a joke or told a joke and how it made you feel. That's such a good feeling to be able to share and to pass on to someone else. When we talk about the stress of COVID, I also think about how it has affected people who aren't able to move freely, people who are immunocompromised, people who have to consider things very differently than other people. And I think that's where we see a lot of disadvantages. And so I'll say, we can focus on the negativity so much, it comes easily. But what I would really challenge you all to do is to focus on really good positives out there. Rather than looking at the late night news, try looking at late night comedy. If it's not US related, you might find some really good comedy out there. Otherwise, go on to streaming sites and watch videos, comedy strips, comedy specials, or even just silly shows that make you laugh. That's such a good feeling. Try music. I know in my home, I really value when I start singing that everybody else kind of just comes around and finishes the song with me, and it's just such a feel-good feeling. One of my daughters plays the ukulele, and she'll just start picking out a song on it, and next thing you know, we're having a complete jam session. And for us, our band is Queen. So, Bohemian Rhapsody, my family can break it down a cappella, full-on drumming on the table, with wazoos and harmonicas and whatever, and it's a riot, but it's hilarious. So I just wanted to share that with you, that you can find different ways to find that positivity. Do we have any other questions, Amy?
Yes. First one is a comment, just first of all saying that they really like the way you give physical examples, like the differences in breathing. It really helps us feel like we're normalizing it and the healthiness towards accepting ourselves. So I think that's a really nice comment. And then I got a joke.
No, let's hear it.
What is the difference between an elephant and an aspirin?
And a what?
Aspirin.
Oh, aspirin. Elephant? I have no idea. What is the difference between an elephant and an aspirin?
If you don't know, I hope you don't get a headache or ask me how to help.
Okay. I like that one. I like that one. Oh, ah, a bartender said to the rabbit in the bar, "What are you doing here?" And he says, "I don't know. That was a spell check error." I was like, "What?" He says, "Yeah, you know, a priest and a rabbi enter a bar. It's a rabbit. Spell check." That's a dad joke.
Funny. I also have one too here saying, I think following up to the pandemic, they say that they're just having a hard time understanding things like the pandemic. So I think just understanding maybe what it means, like
Okay.
for them.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when we think about understanding and comprehension, there are different ways to look at it. The pandemic is a wealth of information, right? There's so much to learn about it and to make sense of it. And then when it gets technical, I know I have a hard time with that because when I do research, it goes into the technical realm. And then when we're doing things like this and we're having these conversations, those research terms have to be simplified so that we can all understand. And in the pandemic, we're hearing a lot of information that we've never heard before. And these are words that we don't know. So I'll say to you, make a list of these words you don't know. Go look them up because you're going to learn. And when you learn, you're going to feel more in control of that information because then you can hold your own in a conversation about this. And when you hear more about it, you're going to understand it. So don't be afraid. It's not a matter of, you know, I'm dumb or this is too much. I don't get it. It just means it's outside of your realm of knowledge, right? I know when my mechanic was telling me about my car and calipers, I was like, what? Calipers? I don't know what a caliper is. Turns out it's important, right? And I didn't take care of it when I should have. But I didn't know because that's not my knowledge base. And so I needed to learn what calipers are. And I still can't tell you what they are, but I know they're important, right? And they cost a lot of money to fix. So take the time to learn more about what you're questioning. Ask, talk to other people about it, and ask Dr. Google. You know, it's Google's really good for information. Just remember that you need to make sure you're getting good information because there's a lot of misinformation out there too. So find out about that. The second thing I wanted to talk about, sometimes when we're not feeling ourselves, when we're feeling stressed or our mood has changed, it changes the way that we think. That's called cognition. And our cognition changes. And so, yeah, our understanding, thought processes will change, and we can't always understand what we're hearing, what's being said to us. I know, I remember I had a really bad fever many years ago, and someone was trying to explain to me something, and I had no clue what they were trying to say because my cognition had changed when I wasn't feeling well. And, you know, afterwards I can look back and go, what was I thinking? You know, I wasn't thinking. So, yeah.
I have one other comment. Someone saying, I love to watch game shows that require thinking. It keeps my mind busy and takes me away from reality for a while. And then we have about 3 more minutes, and then I have a joke to end it that someone said.
Yeah, game shows, fantastic. Family Feud, Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune, all of those other ones. Oh, what was that one? What is that one with Nurse Lynch? Blonde lady, Nurse Lynch. She has a show. Oh, I saw it a few times. You know the one I'm talking about. And anyways, there are really good game shows out there. Absolutely,
there's celebrities on it. And they pair against each other. Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah. So definitely, game shows are funny. Tell me a game show that isn't funny. Game shows are funny. You learn a lot of information. You think about things in different ways. So you get out and you do those game shows as much as you need to. Just make sure that if you're viewing it on a screen, really, you should be taking a break like every 50 to 60 minutes and getting up and moving around, or just taking some deep breaths and stretching. You don't want to be sitting down watching game shows because Kamara says I need to watch game shows and comedies, so I'm doing a 12-hour binge on Netflix. No, don't do that. You can do an hour at a time with some rest breaks in between.
Okay, so the joke I have to finish it off. Why do ducks have feathers?
Because they're fluffy?
To cover their butt quacks.
I didn't even know ducks had butt quacks. Oh my gosh. Anyways, you guys, it was a pleasure. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for your attention today. And I hopefully we can do this again sometime. All right.
Okay, so this is your opportunity now to go take a break, refresh your water, grab a cup of coffee, afternoon tea perhaps, and we will join back at 2:15 to do a little bit of talk about nutrition and a healthy recipe. Thank you, everyone. Hello, everyone. We'll be back in about 5 minutes. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Again, this is Amy. You can't see me on the screen, but I'm helping moderate the event today. I just wanted to introduce our next producer. She is a producer, maybe, presenter, Laura Creek Newman. She is a registered dietitian at the Wellness Institute. She has worked in a variety of specialty and community settings with adults of all ages and abilities, and has found her passion lies in empowering her clients to build healthy and harmonious relationships with food. She's an avid cook and baker and believes that food not only nourishes, but is also meant to be enjoyed. So welcome, Laura.
All right, thanks, Amy. Hi, everybody. Welcome today. I'm super excited to be here. So I have a bit of a two-part presentation for us today. As you can see, I've got some food in front of me, so I'm going to be doing a food demo, and it is the recipe that you all received here. But before that, I'm going to talk a little bit about basic healthy eating and good nutrition and some of the basic things that are helpful for us to know. So just bear with me for a second. I'm going to start sharing my screen here so you can all see. All right. Are we good to go there? All right. So as Amy said, my name is Laura Creek Newman, and I am the dietitian here at the Wellness Institute. Oops. Hang on a second. Okay. So as Amy mentioned in my bio, I think healthy eating is for everybody, and it is something that is attainable for pretty much everybody. So I'm going to go over some basic things today. I'm going to talk about some of the base or most important parts of healthy eating, and it's not just what goes on the plate. I'm going to talk a little bit about how to eat well as well, or ways that we can get more nutrition from things that we're already eating. And then, like I promised, we'll do the cooking demo where I'm going to put together a really simple but super nutritious meal. So when we think of eating well, we often think of what goes on the plate, right? We think of that food. But there's a lot more to it than that. So as you can see, eating well is what we, or most of us, aspire to, but it's not just the what we eat. It has a lot to do with how we eat as well. So there's four main components that I think are really important when we think about eating well and getting good nutrition and a good relationship with food. And those are our structure and routine around eating, of course, the nutrition itself, our ability and how that factors into feeding ourselves well, and then, of course, enjoyment. Because I like to say we have taste buds for a reason, so we do want to take that into account. So the first thing we're going to start with is talking about our structure and routine with eating. Oops, I lost my slide here. 1 second. There we go. All right, so when we think about eating well, one of the first things that we can think about is eating regularly. Now, this doesn't mean that we have to eat at very strict times or that we can't eat outside of that. A regular eating pattern means that we're eating in a more or less the same fashion in most days there. For most people, this is going to include eating at least 3 times a day. Now, the actual number of meals or snacks that we eat in a day is really individual. For some people, they do really well with just 3 meals a day. For other people, eating more frequently, maybe 4 or 5, even 6 times a day, goes really well for them. So there isn't one right or wrong way. But why I do point out that eating at least 3 times a day is because it tends to be really tough to get all of the vitamins and minerals that we need, all of our nutrients, when we're eating fewer than 3 times a day, right? Think of the size of a meal that would have to be just to get in a whole day's worth of energy. So if we're eating less often than that, then we tend to be missing out. So back to that idea of regular meal times. Again, having a bit of a structure, and this is going to help us in a lot of different ways. One of the biggest things is it makes our days a little bit more predictable, right? We don't have to always be thinking of, oh shoot, when did I eat last, and what am I going to eat next? It takes a lot of stress out of eating just food preparation in general. The other thing is that our body actually does a lot better when it knows it's going to get fed regularly. Our body tries to adapt to our daily patterns. And so when we have a more or less similar pattern, our body knows what it's going to get. It knows what's going to happen, and it helps all of our different body systems run better. When we don't have a regular eating pattern, so if we go really long periods of time without eating, and I mean like more than 5-6 hours in a day when we're awake rather, without eating, or we skip meals here and there, the body tends to get kind of confused, and it just doesn't work as well as it could. And that leaves us feeling less good, less energetic, and just not able to go through our day as well as we'd like. Eating well and having structure and routine also means trying to pay attention to some of our hunger and fullness signals. So hunger is something that is there for a really good reason. That's our signal that our body needs something. In a lot of cases, our food is fuel, right? Whether it is actually the energy that we're eating or the vitamins and minerals and things that help our bodies run well. So hunger is there to help let us know that we might be running low on something. So we want to pay attention to that. The thing with hunger is that once we start to get really, really hungry, it gets really tough to either make decisions around food or eat as many different types or variety of food as we would like to do. So paying attention to our hunger and starting to notice when we're getting hungry and trying not to get so overtly hungry can really help us eat in a more regular way. That way we tend to eat what we need in the day. We also tend to eat a bigger variety of foods. And that helps us feel our best for the rest of the day. Similarly, if we're listening to our fullness levels. So, sometimes we might eat and we're just a little bit full. Sometimes we might eat and we're a lot full. And it's going to be normal to fluctuate in that. Listening to how full we're getting can be a good sign of how, if our body is getting what we need in the day. So paying attention to some of those body signals is really, really important. And that is a big part of eating well. And the last point I have on the screen there is talking a little bit about cravings. And the first thing I want to say about cravings is that they are normal. Everybody gets cravings from time to time. Sometimes we get them more often, sometimes we get them less often. Cravings can be for a variety of reasons. Again, we might get a craving because we're missing out on something. Our body's just feeling like we need something. We might get a craving too because of the situation or the environment that we're in. We might see something that looks really delicious or smell something that smells just great, and that can get a craving for it. We can also get cravings based on our emotional and just that mental health state as well, and that's really, really common. For many of us, we all have some kind of emotional or historical connection to food there. So, we have the holiday season upon us right now, and so many of us we could probably think of some foods that we crave around that time, or some foods that we eat it every year at this time, and it reminds us of holidays spent with family, or this relative or that relative, something like that. So cravings are totally normal there. We can choose to eat on them, or we can choose to wait them out. And whether you want to do one or the other is up to you. Both of those are part of eating well. One thing to know about cravings is that in a lot of cases, especially if the cravings are related to something that we're not quite getting enough, say we're feeling really, we're feeling bored or tired or something like that, sometimes it can be helpful to try some other strategies in that time to see if what we're really craving is food, or maybe we're just craving a change in activity. So having some structure to our eating, having routine, and feeding ourselves reliably is the fundamental part of eating well. So I kind of answered this question, but I'm curious what you think here, or what your initial thoughts are. I hear this one a lot from clients. They say, but snacks aren't good for me. I've heard that I shouldn't snack. Snacking is bad. So think to yourself, myth or fact, what do you think on this one? And so if you thought myth, I'm in agreement with you for that. I think snacks can be really, really useful. It depends on how we think about snacks as well. So in general, snacks can help us get more nutrition from the day, especially if you find that, say, 3 bigger meals just aren't working for you. Maybe it's because of your routine, or maybe you just don't have a big appetite, so you can't eat a lot at once. Snacks are awesome in those cases there. One of the things that can help us get the most out of our snacks is to think of them like little meals. So when we think of snacks as being like little bits of our meals and maybe similar types of meal type foods or those really nutritious foods, that's where we're going to get that good nutrition. We're also going to feel more satisfied from our snacks. So some of our basic things, something like cheese and crackers, that's an awesome snack, some really nutritious food in there. Maybe some fruit and some peanut butter, that's an awesome snack as well. So these types of snacks are going to help you get through your day and give you lots of good nutrition. So next, let's talk a little bit about nutrition. You may have heard of the idea of balanced meals or balanced eating. So let's go over what that means here. So of course, human beings, we need a lot of different nutrients to be healthy, to make our bodies function, to give us the energy that we need. So we have evolved to eat a wide variety of foods. And one of the biggest things that you can take away from this is that the more different types of foods that we can eat, the more likely it is we are to get good nutrition. And there's no one right or wrong way to eat food. There's so many foods out there. There's lots of great ways to get nutrition. So to help us get the most out of our meals, we can try to think of having different types of foods at our meals there. And that's going to serve a few purposes. So it's going to help us, again, make sure that we get all of those nutrients that we need through the day. It's also going to help us feel our best. It's going to help us feel most satisfied from our meals, help us have the best energy, help us, prevent maybe some weird cravings or don't make sense, help our guts work the best, all of those types of things. So I've got a picture here of what we would consider a balanced plate. And I'm going to go through all of the different foods that we have on here. Now, I'm going to go through these types of foods, but your plate doesn't need to look like this in order to be balanced. There are lots of ways to combine different foods to be really, really balanced. So let's go through each of these foods. The first one there, we have our starchy foods, and we do want to include some of that in our meals. These starchy foods, they're our energy foods, those get up and go foods. They're also good for our mood. So that can help our brains work well to keep us thinking and just help us feel emotionally our best. So starchy foods, an example would be like the potatoes on the plate here, bread, rice, pasta, noodles. These are all starchy examples of starchy foods here. Next, we have our fruits and our veggies. Again, any kind is good. In general, the more we can eat, the better. There's really no limit on these, and the more different colors you can go for, the better it is. Some people might be worried about fruits because they're sweet. Fruits, yeah, they do have some natural sugar, but they're super, super full of lots of our vitamins and minerals and our fiber. So I love fruits, go for fruits. You might find at some meals you'd rather have fruits, other meals you'd rather have vegetables, and that's totally fine. Maybe you like to have both, and that's okay. Some people like to have them separate on their plate, the way that this plate has, and other people would rather have them mixed in. Either way, they still count, and they're still good for us. Next up, we want to try to include some protein foods at most of our meals. So that would be things like our meats, our fish, poultry like chicken and turkey, so those animal foods. Eggs and dairy products can also be good protein sources as well. But also, if we can, some plant-based protein sources. So that's things like our beans, our lentils, our chickpeas, also things like our nuts and seeds, like peanut butter is a great example for that as well. So protein foods, they serve a lot of roles. One of the biggest things they do is they help keep our muscles strong, but they also help us feel more full and satisfied from our meals. So they help our energy last longer through the day. So protein foods are really great. And then the last thing we want to think about is trying to get some high calcium foods regularly. I have it at each meal here, but you might want to do it between meals or whatever variation you want. So of course, when we think of calcium, a lot of people probably think of dairy products, and that's what I have in the picture here. But there are other non-dairy calcium foods as well. So some of our veggies, our dark leafy green veggies, can be a good source of calcium. Some of our beans and nuts can also be a good source of calcium as well. So there's a variety of different things. So if dairy is not necessarily your thing, there's options that you can still get calcium. You don't have to eat dairy. So in general, when we think of a balanced meal, the more of these different types of foods we can get at a meal, the more balanced it is. If you want to think of it as a basic guideline. Try to get at least 3 of these different types of foods at a main meal as much as possible. The more often you can do that, the more likely it is you are to get your good nutrition. When it comes to snacking, you can certainly do a variety of types of foods, but aim for maybe at least 2 different types of foods to help you, again, feel more full and satisfied and get good nutrition. Now, I wanted to point out or talk a little bit more about a couple of important nutrients in CP. So I talked already about high calcium foods, but something that we do want to pay attention to is keeping our bones nice and strong and healthy. Now, all of us, all humans, as we all get older, our bones can get a little bit weaker, so we want to pay attention to bone health, but it can be especially true for some people living with CP. So calcium is really, really important here. Calcium is like the bricks in the wall of our bones. It's like the building blocks. It's what keeps them hard and strong. So we want to get a lot of calcium in on a daily basis. We also need a vitamin called vitamin D. And that vitamin is kind of like the bricklayer in the wall. So it allows the calcium that we eat to get into our bones so that they can stay nice and strong. So we need both of those 2 nutrients together. So calcium, I talked about where to find that already. Vitamin D is a little bit tougher. We can get it in some of our foods. So things like milk and plant-based milks are fortified with vitamin D, same with margarine. It's naturally present in some of our fish. But most Canadians really don't get enough vitamin D every day. And especially in the winter time, you know, we're in the middle of winter now, when we're not exposed to the sun, when we don't have our skin exposed to the sun, we can't make our own vitamin D. So that can be a problem. So in that case, looking at other forms, things like supplements can be really helpful. So you might have been told or been given the advice to take a vitamin D supplement. And that's a real benefit for a lot of Canadians who are trying to pay attention to their bone health. And if you haven't been told that, but you're wondering, that's something to bring up with your primary care provider, your doctor, a dietitian that you work with, somebody like that, to get specific advice there. A couple other nutrients that I want to bring up. Next are magnesium and fiber. So I have a picture there of a lot of like fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds. These are all excellent sources of magnesium. So magnesium is a mineral. We only need little bits every day, but it's really important in helping to keep our bones strong, just like calcium and vitamin D are. So we need that magnesium. And it's good for other body systems as well. Our fiber as well. Now, when we think of fiber, I don't know about you, but I automatically start thinking about gut health, right? Keeping the gut moving, keeping our tummies happy. And this is really important because not only do we feel better when our tummies are moving well, but you know, our whole bodies work better. Fiber is another nutrient that a lot of Canadians don't get enough of. So this is something that is especially important to pay attention to. Both magnesium and fiber, or fiber is only from plant-based foods, but magnesium is mostly from plant-based foods as well. So again, the more of those fruits and veggies, the more of those whole grains, nuts and seeds, beans, lentils, chickpeas that we eat, the more of both of these vitamins and minerals we're gonna get here. And lastly, I want to point out the protein part of it again. This is one of the ones that a lot of people do tend to miss out on. Protein foods sometimes can be a little bit more work to put together, or they take a little bit longer. And so it's something that it's easy to miss out on. They're not the easiest foods there. But in CP, we do need to keep our muscles strong, and we need to get enough protein every day as well. So protein foods of any kind are really important. The more often you get them through the day, the more of that benefit you're going to get from that. Okay. So thinking on the idea of the foods to eat, here's another question for you. Only fresh vegetables are nutritious. So think on that. I want you to think, what do you think? Is this true or false here? So again, if you said myth, again, I'm with you on that one. But this is a common thing that a lot of people hear, or they get told, you know, we should eat our fresh vegetables, we should buy fresh things. And while that can be all well and good, we're also in December in Manitoba here, so we're not growing a whole lot of fresh stuff ourselves right now. So nutritionally, there's benefits from fresh vegetables, but also from cooked, from frozen vegetables, even from canned vegetables, we get nutrition benefits. So all of these are great varieties. And again, we see benefits from having different types of things. In some cases, things like our cooked vegetables or our frozen then cooked vegetables can be a real benefit because they can be a little bit easier to digest, or they actually, the vitamins and minerals in them are a little bit more available. So that can be great for us. So don't hesitate. Don't feel like we have to buy everything fresh or eat it raw to get the benefit. We get benefits from any type of fruits and veggies that we have. So now, of course, being able to put our foods together is part of eating well. So if we think about the world today, we've got lots of beautiful pictures of foods and fancy ways of doing things, but eating well doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to take hours. It doesn't have to have special skills or even really special equipment. Really simple things can be part of eating well, and it's not lesser than anything. In fact, it makes your life a little bit easier if you're not putting big expectations on yourself a lot. So that's really important. Eating well comes in many forms. Sometimes, like I said, it could be something simple like cheese and crackers and maybe an apple, right? Sometimes it could be a little bit more involved. Maybe it's a pot of chili and some bread, right? It could be anything in between there, but there's lots of ways to eat well. One of the things that helps for all of us is looking at some of those things that are easy, nutritious foods. So I mentioned things like our canned frozen vegetables. These are some of my favorite easy, nutritious foods because you don't have to really do anything to them and they're ready to go. All you need to do is heat them up and use them. So I love those types of things. Some of our canned protein options can be fantastic for this as well. So today I'm going to be demonstrating with canned chickpeas, but things like our canned fish and our canned chicken, like flakes of chicken or turkey, these are super easy but very nutritious options and ways to get protein in, and they can be used in a variety of ways. So these are really important. These are really helpful. So don't hesitate to look for some of those easy things. We often think that, oh, if something is easy, then maybe it's less nutritious. But some of these basic ingredients that just have some of the preparation steps taken away from them, they save us a lot of time and energy, but they're still really nutritious. So don't hesitate for some of those types of things. We also have the option of thinking of ways to get a little bit more nutrition into some of the other foods that you might already be eating. So I call this add-in nutrition. So in this case, you could think about a meal that you use a lot or that's easy for you to do, and we can think, okay, what can we do to just get a little more nutrition? Maybe it's something like adding in an extra type of food. So one of the favorites that we do at my house is something like, if you like something like macaroni and cheese or like boiled pasta, adding some frozen veggies into that, just mixing it right in is a great way to doing it. Or grating some extra cheese on top to get a little bit more protein and calcium. You know, you're boosting the nutrition of what you're already eating. If you like a plate of spaghetti and tomato sauce, you know what, that's a really great start. The tomato sauce has got some veggies in it. Adding in extra veggies into that tomato sauce is a simple way to just get more of that fiber and those vitamins and minerals. Something else that you could do if you're making something like a soup, you can add, or you can use things like milk to make your soup with, or adding in something like that, or even again, adding in some frozen veggies just right into the soup as you heat it, and they'll heat up at the same time, and you're gonna get more nutrition with that. So that's something, again, you can work with a dietitian on that, but there's little things that you can do. Take a meal that you're already working on and just add in an extra type of food to get way more nutrition from it. Now, I do want to make a little note about food safety because that is important for all of us. So there's a couple of ways that we want to think about eating well safely. First of all, we want to think about our ability. So in some cases, there's some foods that can be hard to eat, right? So thinking about, is there a way that I can change up the texture to make it a little bit easier to either chew or swallow or whatever it is there. So that's because we don't want to cause any other issues down the road. So that's something I'm going to demonstrate, just a simple way of making the meal that I'm making here a little bit easier to eat as well. The other thing is looking at the foods themselves. So food safety, of course, it starts at our food storage and our food shopping. So we want to be buying foods that are not visibly spoiled when we can. And then when we get home, we want to bring them and we want to store them at the right temperature right away. So making sure that foods that need to be frozen or refrigerated stay really cold and get into those places right away. When it comes to the food preparation, of course, first thing, we got to clean our hands and wash our hands well, make sure that our food surfaces are clean. And we're using clean utensils. We're not mixing cooked foods and raw foods with that. Once we've prepared something, getting leftovers into the fridge to be stored safely is really important as well. So that just makes sure that none of those bad bacteria start growing in our food that could make us sick a little bit later. If something looks off or smells off, it's probably a good idea not to eat it there. I can totally understand nobody wants to waste food. No, we all feel bad if we left something a little bit long, but the risks of foodborne illness, of getting some of those bad bacteria growing, can be pretty high. So if you're not sure, toss it. If you see mold growing on something, just toss it. If it doesn't smell right, don't eat it. Okay, that's one of the biggest things there, because a lot of these things can make us really sick. Okay, and the last pillar of eating well that I want to talk about today is that eating should taste good, or at least most of it should taste good. Sometimes when we think about eating healthy or eating well, sometimes we get some really unpleasant associations, right? We might think of, oh, it's really boring, or I can't ever have something that tastes good. Oh, my salad dressing's been taken away, whatever it is, right? I can never eat a dessert again. All of these things, and I hear these things all the time. But like I said, we have taste buds for a reason, and they actually do help us to get better nutrition. So first and foremost, I want you to know you don't have to like everything out there. There are so many different types of foods, and everybody has their own tastes and preferences. So it's okay not to like everything there. And you probably actually like more foods than you think you do. Next, we want to think about, starting with what we like, because if we like something, we're probably going to eat it, right? So if we are thinking about, adding something into our diet or trying new food, starting from a place where we like something and adding in is usually a more effective way. When we start thinking about taking away foods we like, that makes us feel bad, right? Nobody likes to have their favorites taken away, and it doesn't make us feel very positive about trying something new either. So like I was saying, if you want to try something new, maybe add it into a food that you're already doing. Maybe you want to try a new vegetable or a cooked vegetable and you like something like macaroni and cheese, add it into that, see what you like there. Or little things like that can start that taste, start getting us to try some new things if that's what we want to do. Now, we might not always like something right off the bat, too. We often expect that, I taste it and I either like it or I don't. And that can be our initial reaction. But if we're interested in it, we can learn to like it. Sometimes it just takes a bit of time. So if you don't like something the first time, that's fine. But, keep the door open for that, right? Maybe the next time you see that thing, give it a try again. You might like it. Or after trying it a few times, you might develop a taste for it. Our taste buds are really flexible. They will adapt to the things that we do. So give it a try, keep that door open. And sometimes it just means changing up the way that we're trying something. So one of the biggest things that I hear with people is, finding vegetables that they like, or finding a way that they like vegetables is one of the biggest things. So maybe you've only ever tried raw broccoli and you don't like raw broccoli. Or maybe you've only had cooked broccoli and you don't like steamed broccoli rather. Sometimes changing up the way that we do it can make a big difference. So maybe instead of steamed broccoli, we do something like roasted broccoli. That changes the flavor a lot. Or maybe we add a dip or a sauce, or maybe just some grated cheese on top of it. These are ways that change up the food and the taste, and we learn to like things. So it's okay to experiment with different things. And it's also okay to not like broccoli in all of its forms. That's fine too. So the moral of the story here is taste is important, okay? So start with what you like, and as time goes on, as you try things, you'll find that you start liking more and more things. So those are the basic parts of eating really well. And as you saw, it's not it's really, what's on the plate is really only a small part of things. There's a lot to it. So, you know, we want to think of eating well in a really global, holistic kind of way. So now I'm going to do a food demo for you. I'm going to do some chickpea salad wraps, and I am, just want to go through. Okay, I think everybody can see me now, hopefully. Or am I still sharing my screen?
Yeah, I'm sharing screen. There we go.
There we go. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to do the chickpea salad wrap demo here. So I chose this recipe for a couple of reasons. One, it's really simple and it uses some really basic kind of ingredients. And it's part of it being simple is it's a no-cook recipe. Two, it's a one-dish recipe, so you know you don't need to prepare a bunch of different things. But we get 3 different types of foods in this thing. So again, we're looking at a really balanced one-dish meal. And 3, it's a really flexible recipe. So we're starting off with the way that the recipe is written, but you can change it based on your tastes and what's available to you. So I'm starting off with chickpeas today, and I'm not sure if some of you might be familiar with them, maybe you use them. So for some people, maybe you've never even heard of them, like, or what do I even do with a chickpea? So chickpeas can be really versatile. They are part of that plant-based protein group, so the legume family. So they are a good source of protein. So they're going to be our protein food in this recipe today. They're also a really good source of fiber, and they're a good source of iron too. So lots of good nutrition. Okay, so I'm using canned chickpeas today. I used no salt added chickpeas, but you can use any type of canned chickpeas. When you open up the jar, or the can rather, drain them off really well, and then rinse them out really, really well. You just want to get all that liquid off of them. There. And so they are sitting, and so there we go, our chickpeas. Now, you can leave them whole if this works for you. If you find that this texture might be a little bit tough for you, or you're not sure, then you can mash them. So I'm actually going to mash all of them here in a separate little bowl. You can do that in a bunch of different ways. I'm just going to use a fork to help to break them up a little bit here. You could do a blender if you need a really smooth texture. They do blend well. And I'll actually I'll talk about the recipe in a blender as well, or if you have something like a food processor, but a fork or a potato masher, these work really well as well. So you just kind of break them up a little bit. I'm gonna add these back in, but you could mash all of them if that works better for you. So I've got my chickpeas in my bowl here, and now I'm going to mix up the dressing here. So this recipe is a lot like a tuna salad here. So you could actually use tuna in this recipe if you wanted to. You could even do a mix of tuna and chickpeas if that sounds interesting to you. So I've got my chickpeas ready to go. Over here, I'm starting out with some mayonnaise. Sometimes we might hear that mayonnaise isn't great for us. On the whole, it's actually made with some pretty healthy fats in it, so I'm not too worried about it, and it brings a lot of flavor with it. So next, into the mayonnaise, I'm adding some Dijon mustard here. So when you're thinking about eating well, adding lots of different types of things for flavor can be really, really helpful. So adding some mustard into the mayo here, it's not going to make it too spicy or too mustardy, but it just kicks up that flavor. It makes it more interesting. You could use any type of mustard that you wanted to as well. So if you have yellow mustard at home, you could use that. If you like a really spicy mustard, you could use that. And you can use more or less. It's up to you. Next, I'm going to use some lemon juice here. Pop that open. Okay, and that helps thin it out. And again, it gives it a little bit of a kick with that flavor. So we'll put it there. And then lastly, I'm going to add in a couple of spices here. Spices are awesome for flavor. And that's something, they take a little bit of time to get used to, but the more we play with them, the more comfortable we get, and they just make our foods a little bit more interesting. So this recipe has cumin and some paprika in it. Again, if you like other types of things, you could do that, or if you don't like one of these spices, you don't have to use it. It's up to you.
I'm going to add in one thing here quickly, Laura.
Sure.
Sorry. I just got notes that Sarah mentioned that she didn't put paprika or cumin in the packages because she couldn't break it up or send it safely.
Okay.
So you may not get those spices, but you could use whatever other spices you wanted.
Absolutely. And you know what? This recipe is still going to taste really good, even if you don't use that.
Do you mind, Laura, if I just zoom in a little bit here on the food? Just
Sure.
here, there we go. See it a little better.
Okay, so you want to mix it's helpful to mix the sauce ingredients together first, just that way they get mixed really well, and then you don't get any clumps of mayonnaise or clumps of mustard there. So now I'm going to add it into our chickpea. Okay, so just start mixing that around, get it really well mixed. And now I'm going to add in a couple of other items. So I'm adding in some chopped green onion here. There. Again, you could use, you don't have to use this if you don't want to. You could use more if you wanted to as well. If you have dried chives, you don't have fresh, that would work really well as well. And then next I'm using some diced celery. So again, if you have celery, that's awesome. If celery is a little bit too hard for you, it's just not easy to manage, then you don't have to use that if you don't want to. Or you could also use other veggies in this. So something else that would go really well in here, if you like it a little bit more of a kick to it, you could use something like a little bit of onion, either white onion or red onion would go really well in this if you like as well. So these veggies in here serve two big purposes. One, they add in extra veggies. So any way we can get extra veggies is a great way to do it. And two, both of these are really flavorful kind of veggies. So they make it taste good. We want things to taste really good. Okay. So you just get it really mixed around. If you're using tuna, you follow this exact same process. You know, you would start with that can of tuna, you would drain it really well, and then you would mix everything in the same steps if you're doing it that way. Okay, so I've got, there we go. The chickpea salad is ready to go. Now, if this isn't mashed up enough for you, you could mash it again with a fork if you wanted to. If you need it really smooth and you have something like a blender or somebody can help you with something like that, then you could take this whole thing and put it into the blender. You might need to add a little bit of extra liquid, like a little bit of water or something, or a little extra mayo would go really well in that to make it really smooth. But you could do that if that works better for you. So again, whatever texture you like better or works better for you. So now let's assemble our wrap here. So I'm going to start off, I've got a whole wheat wrap here. I like the whole wheat ones partly because they're much higher in fiber than the white flour ones. But if you'd like to have white flour, you can certainly have that some of the time too. So I'm starting off with a whole wheat one here, just a basic general tortilla. And I'm going to add some greens. So I have 3 different types of greens here. And they're a little bit hard to see on the plate here, but I've got my dark green spinach on top. So that's what I'm going to put in. But I also brought a couple other ones that I think can be great choices as well. So this one here is our general, green salad mixture. And that's something that is really available in a lot of places. It's usually one of the cheaper salads out there. So if you have that or you like that, that's a great option. I also have coleslaw mix here. So that's something we don't always think about as having a lot of nutrition, but cabbage is actually an excellent source of both fiber and vitamin C. So if you like something like that, or, again, it's one of the cheaper options there, it's a little bit easier to use and it lasts a while, that can be a good option to go in this wrap as well. So I'm taking a little bit of our greens here, and you know what, why not throw a little bit of cabbage in here? The cabbage has a little bit more crunch to it, and I like crunch, but if that doesn't work for you, that is okay, and we'll just throw a little bit in here. Okay. Okay, so then we put our chickpea mixture on here. So this mixture will make enough for somewhere between 2 and 3 wraps, depending on how big of a wrap you want to use. Now, my wraps on the plate here are also pretty large. So if the wraps that you have at whatever time are smaller, you might find that this makes more sandwiches. So Yeah, so aim to, you'll probably get 2 or 3 meals out of this. Last, I'm gonna top this with some avocado. So this is one of the ingredients that I love to use. Avocados are really nutritious foods. They are a higher fat food, but the fat in them is really, really healthy, and that they're really creamy and kind of smooth. So they're really nice when you pair them with some tangy foods. So you want your avocado to be not super squishy to the touch when you use it, but you don't want it to be really hard. If it's really hard, you want to let it ripen a little bit, get it a little bit softer. That's when it's right. So to cut my avocado, I'm just making long slices here. And I'm going to borrow this spoon, and you can just kind of scoop it out, scoop it through. And then I'm going to put these on here and just arrange them so. Okay, so that's our basic meal here. So we have our starchy foods from our grain here for our energy and our fiber. We have our veggies with our avocado and our greens mixture and the celery and the green onions. And then we have our chickpeas for our protein foods here. So we've got lots of great nutrition. Now we just wrap up the wrap. And this is always a bit of the messy part. And you know what? If you make a mess, no big deal. You can always rewrap it. That's what I end up doing a lot of the time. And there we go. So that's our basic chickpea wrap. We have a balanced meal right here. And this is something that you can bring on the go with you or just eat at home. This one too, you could even make one in advance. So if you wanted to make up 2 and have one for lunch and maybe have one for supper, it would last pretty well for that. The wraps are nice. They don't get soggy really, really fast. And this recipe would be good for that. If you wanted to stay it together, I'd recommend taking some plastic wrap and wrapping it around. Otherwise it might unfold a little bit. So that's basics of good nutrition. We have a simple meal here. It only took me a few minutes to put it together. And at this point, I would love to answer any questions. If anybody has anything, any comments or questions they'd like to share.
Yes, I have one question that I've gotten. What is the difference between vitamin D in food and vitamin D from the sun?
Oh, that's a really good question. So basically, it's actually the same thing, but what's really cool is that it's not actually like the vitamin D in food is either added to food or it's naturally there from the animals. The vitamin D from the sun is actually when the sun's light touches our skin, it tells our bodies to make our own vitamin D. So it's the same thing, but the sun's light, the ultraviolet lights from the sun, tell our bodies to make vitamin D themselves, which is really, really cool. And that's some of the ways that humans have got their vitamin D for a lot of human history there. So yeah, it's the same thing. So it's really not different. And even the vitamin D in supplements, so if you are taking a vitamin D supplement, that's the same thing that your body would make or that would be in the food as well. So it's all the same. It's just kind of how you get it. In the winter time here in Manitoba, we're covered up in long clothes, and also the sun's really far away. So our bodies just don't get enough of that sunlight to make very much vitamin D. So that's why we worry about it a little bit more here. Good question. Awesome.
Great. I had another question.
Sure.
Just really asking about the meaning of options. So does that mean making changes or just like variety?
I think you think of it like variety, if that's helpful. So giving ourselves, not thinking that it only has to be one way for things. So you don't necessarily have to take away anything that you are already doing or anything that you're already liking, but adding in. Often, again, when we think about adding in, we feel a little bit better, and we're, we're more positive about things. So giving us more variety of things. So sometimes you might choose what you've always done, and then sometimes you might choose a new thing as well. So hope that answers your question.
Great. We don't have any other questions at the moment, but if anyone wants to write something in the chat box, question box, I'm checking those.
Just wrap it. think that's it.
Yeah. Oh, I got one. Okay.
What about cravings and sugar? When people crave sweet things or carbs when they're tired or glum, what would you suggest?
Oh, yeah. That's one that a lot of people struggle with. And you know what? That's a really normal kind of response. So especially sweets and sugar, so they play a couple of roles. One is that they're a really quick kind of energy. So especially if you're feeling tired, your body is just trying to get energy any way that it can. So something like sugar would, help give you a little boost of energy. And so it makes sense that you would crave it. The other thing is that those sweets, especially when we eat sweets kind of on their own and not part of a meal, they do boost our mood a little bit. They can boost some of those chemicals in our brain that make us feel a little bit happier. So again, when we're feeling down, it's kind of normal to kind of want to reach for something like sugar or sweets because we know it's going to give us that little boost. We also know that it doesn't really last all that long, right? So it gives us that boost in the moment, but not too long. So understanding that these are normal ways that the body works, right? The body's just trying to do what it can. In the moment, it can be kind of tough, but you can try some different things. If you're thinking to yourself, if you're going, oh, I'm feeling down and I want some sugar, just even being aware that, oh, I'm feeling down and noticing that connection can, again, give us some options. I like to use that word, but it can help us think, okay, well, is there anything else that can help us feel up? Sometimes the choice is sugar, and that's fine. But you might want to think of like, okay, well, what else could help our mood with that? What else could be going on there? So that's something that you can look at with that. Another thing that we want to think about too is if we're tired, well, then let's look at our whole day, right? If we're really tired, maybe it's late at night, and this is a common time when people find that they start craving sweets later in the evening. So that's something that if your body's getting tired, but it's not getting sleep, if you have that option, maybe sleep is what you really need right then and there. Or it could also be a sign that maybe what you ate earlier in the day just wasn't enough for you. So if you didn't have having those more balanced meals, or even just those regular meals, sometimes can help take care of some of those cravings because your body was well fueled and stocked up on all its nutrients earlier in the day. So there's lots of different ways to approach it there. I hope that gives you some ideas. But again, for most people, we kind of zero in on a couple of things that are most meaningful to you. Good question.
I have another one. How can we keep from snacking too much? It becomes entertainment instead of substance.
Yes.
And then also with regards to that, I had a question about caffeine. So.
Okay. So let's do those ones kind of separately there. So snacking, and this is where people feel that snacking is a problem. And so, yeah, that snacking too much. There's a few different things that we want to think of. Again, thinking about why we're snacking at that moment there. Are we snacking because, it's been 3-4 hours since we've last eaten? We might actually be hungry. And some people actually get hungrier a little bit more often than that. So some people, they find they need to eat every 2-3 hours. So that's not necessarily, a bad thing in that case. But if you're noticing for yourself, snacking is something to do. And you're right, eating is an activity. And right now in our world, we're lacking a lot of activities. So for a lot of people, they're feeling this challenge right now. So what I would say for that is, again, if you're thinking of that activity there, that's a good time to check in with yourself and ask yourselves those questions about hunger and fullness. How hungry am I right now? Is my tummy rumbling? Am I feeling that low energy, headache, mood change, whatever it is that tells me I'm hungry there? And also, how full am I? Sometimes you can check in and say, I'm still pretty full. Like I don't have any of those hunger signals. My stomach feels like I've eaten recently. So while eating is a thing to do in that case, it's not really, is this going to make me feel better? I could do it, certainly, but is it really going to make me feel better? And if I'm bored, and that's a really classic one, what else could I do? In some cases, people will find that it's helpful to have a little bit of a list of different activities that they might do at those times, especially if you're doing things like you're on the computer or on the phone or watching TV. Those are times often, we're doing it, but we're actually still kind of bored. So maybe there's something else we could do, maybe a totally different activity, or if you want to keep doing that, even something to keep our hands busy can be really helpful. So it could be something like some people do like a puzzle if that works for them, or they might just play with a little toy if that works, or some people will do things like fold laundry or anything like that. And sometimes that fills the place of eating and you don't miss the food at that point. Great.
All right, so I have one other question, just asking about caffeine. Should we avoid it if we want to stay healthy?
Ooh, that's a good question. So for the most part, we find that most people can have some caffeine in the day and still be pretty healthy. So when we're talking about reasonable amounts to have, we're talking about 2 cups of coffee a day. Now, that's going to be a little bit individual. For some people, they find that they don't feel well with just a small amount of caffeine, and other people can have more than that. But most people can have some. So it's usually not something that you need to stay away from entirely. Now, we want to think about how much. And for most people, we do find that after a certain amount, so once we're drinking, say, multiple cups of coffee or many, many sodas a day, we start to notice some of those negative effects of caffeine, especially things like affecting our sleep patterns, or they can make us jittery or kind of nervous and anxious. So if you're experiencing any of those, then in that case, you may not need to cut it out, but just having less is probably a good idea. So for yourself, if you have caffeine and you're feeling like you're sleeping well and it's not affecting your mood or anxiety levels or anything like that, then it's probably safe for most people, especially if you're having a pretty moderate amount, like the equivalent of a couple cups of coffee a day. If you choose to have less than that, that's also fine. If you are having a lot more than that, then your risk of having sort of disrupted sleep and all those problems goes up.
Okay, I have one other question here. How much water do we really need in a day?
Good question. We've all probably heard 8 cups or 8 glasses of water a day, right? And so this is sort of that general advice that really doesn't give us a lot of info. So most adults do need about 2 liters of fluid a day, which is about 8 cups of fluid. But it doesn't all have to be water. So that's one key thing. We can get our fluid needs from other beverages as well. So water is a great option, but we can also get fluid from things like tea, especially things like herbal tea. We do get fluid from our coffee as well. So that counts as fluid. If you drink milk, that counts as fluid as well. If you eat soups, those are made with fluid. That you're going to get fluid from that. And then we do get a bit of fluid from the fruits and the vegetables and the other foods that we eat as well. So we don't need to have 8 glasses of only water a day. Most people do need to be having a few, like several cups of fluid a day, but it doesn't all have to be water on its own. So add up how much you're having of all of your beverages every day. And if you think you're getting to about 8 cups or about 2 liters a day, then for most adults, you're doing well with that. Now, if it's hot outside, or you're sweating a lot, or if you're feeling kind of sick, if you're having nausea, vomiting, anything like that, you're going to need more fluid in that case. So your thirst is always a good way to check in with that as well. So if you're starting to feel thirsty, if your mouth is feeling dry, your lips are feeling dry, you're not going to the bathroom as often, these are all signs that you're not getting enough fluid. But in terms of water, I love water, but it doesn't all have to be plain water.
All right, the last 2 are some comments.
Okay.
Someone says, I loved the recipe. Thank you so much for showing it to us with a heart, which is very nice.
You're welcome, I'm glad.
And then the last one, someone says, please take a bite. You have to. Oh, that's awesome.
I love it.
Okay, so if we don't have any other questions, we could probably end it for the day. And thank you to our presenters for the day. They did a really great job, and I hope everyone enjoyed themselves. And a big thank you to Sarah Gates, Red River Co-op, CPAM, and I think Creative Manitoba, I think, was another one in there. So I think thank you, everyone, and everyone have a great day. Bye.